What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Locker Room Rant. This is Niko, once again going solo today. Just wanted to come in and kind of drafts tomorrow, so wanted to come do a show before the draft. Let you know my input on that. John V is busy at the moment. We tried to get something this week, but just didn't work out. So, yeah, once again, I'm going solo. So that's it. So basically, what I wanted to talk about today is obviously the draft is upon us. So yay! All right. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about, and I have kind of this thing where it's a love, like, and settle for. So I have a couple prospects, one that I like, one that I love, one that I like, and one that I'm going to settle for. They aren't the only prospects that I love. They aren't the only prospects that I like, and they are the only prospects that I'll settle for. But just wanted to touch on a couple players that I think will be there with the Browns' second pick. There's a reason why I'm not going to go over quarterback, and there's a reason why I'm not going to go over safety, because I don't think the Browns need that. But it's not just going to be Brown-centric. Obviously, I'm going to touch on other teams as well, probably most likely the 49ers. So let's get into it a little bit. So first, I'm going to start with the wide receivers. So the first love of mine is going to be Xavier Leggett. So Xavier Leggett is a guy who I absolutely love. All right, he's my if the Browns were going to draft any receiver, this is the one that I want. He is 6'1". If you ever watch a South Carolina tape, he looks much bigger. He looks much bigger than 6'1". He's also about 230 pounds. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret about Xavier Leggett. He's the fastest guy in the draft. Okay? There is no wide receiver in the draft faster than him. Now, I know what you might say. That's crazy, Nick. This is measurable. And Xavier Worthy from Texas actually ran the fastest 40 in combine history. That's true. But this is also not a foot race. Xavier Leggett also ran in the 4.3s. But Xavier Leggett, if you watch the tape and you watch the highlights, Xavier Leggett breaks away from everyone. And he plays in a good conference. And he breaks away from everyone. At 230, that is insane. Now, the knock on him is that he only had 1 year of extreme production, which that 1 year was fantastic, which was last year. But the 3 years previous, he did not do all that well or do much. I don't know if he had necessarily had the opportunity to do a lot. But all I know is last year, he did do a lot, and he has the physical tools, and that's enough for me. That's enough for me. He is a dream pick of mine. He's the second guy on my board for the Browns. But I think a team like the 49ers or a team like the Chiefs, these are teams that are very prevalent in this group. I think those guys could easily do well to get him as well. My like pick is Malachi Corley. Malachi Corley from I had the thing, but he's from Western Kentucky. Malachi Corley they call him Baby Debo. I'm not necessarily so sure he's Debo Samuel, but he's close enough. And I think there are a lot of teams who can do well to get him. You need to soften. The 49ers prove this with Debo Samuel all the time. You need to soften up that midfield you need to soften up that middle of the field, that 5 to 10 yard area. And Debo Samuel is able to do that because he's able to work in short range and bust out long plays. So Debo Samuel, in essence, makes the 49ers offense so much better. When he's not on the field, 49ers offense, not really all that impressive. When Debo Samuel's on the field, they're a force to be reckoned with. And I think Malachi Corley can give you a little bit of that. Is he going to give you exactly that much? I don't think so. It'd be unfair to expect him to do that. But I would be super stoked if the Browns got him in the third round. My settle for wide receiver is a guy who not a lot of people are talking about. Jacob Cowing. He's from Arizona. This guy, I don't know why people aren't talking about him. To me, he reminds me exactly of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is Amon-Ra St. Brown reincarnated. What's going on, JT? What's going on, Havoc? We're just really busy right now. So, but I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about the draft the day before the draft. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. But yeah, that's about it. But yeah, Jacob Cowing, he reminds of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's very small. He's like 5'8", like weighs like 180 pounds. But he's super quick. He's not like 4.3 speed, but he's 4.4s. And he's able to find, if you watch his tape, he's able to find holes in the defense. And I think the Browns could use a guy like that. I know a lot of teams can. But he's projected right now by all the draft sayers to go in like the 5th, 6th round. I think if you can get a Jacob Cowing in the 5th, 6th round, you're going to get an absolute steal. You're going to get a guy who's going to start for you at some point in time, maybe in the slot. But I don't, and a lot of people are pigeonholing him as a slot receiver. I don't think he is. I think he can be an outside receiver. I think he could be an Amon-Ra St. Brown type. I really believe this guy's a clone of him. I believe he could put up the same type of production as Amon-Ra St. Brown, who just got signed to a huge contract. So, yeah, that's my settle. But if my team got him, I'd be super ecstatic. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the linebackers. Now, this actually has my number one. If he's there, the Browns should pick him because it's a need. It's a need. And this guy's just absolutely dynamic. Okay? And that person is Mr. Edgerrin Cooper. I love Edgerrin Cooper. He's being projected anywhere from the early to middle of the 2nd round. Why? I don't really know. To me, and before I go any further, the way I judge people, I'm not a draft expert, obviously. Otherwise, I'd be getting paid to do that. Other than the thing that I'm going to do at 11 o'clock, which is go to the hospital and be a nurse. But I'm not a draft expert. But I am very. I do love the draft. Love the draft since I was a very small kid, and I study a lot of shit that I can, as much as I can. But I don't have the access that obviously bigger names would have. But what I like to do is I like to look at highlights. All right. I don't like to find faults in players. I want to know what they're capable of. I want to know what their max is. So I want to look at the highlights. And if something jumps out at me, that's when I really fall in love with a player. And Edgerrin Cooper is somebody that I fell in love with. And I fell in love with him for the same reason I fell in love with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And because he does a little bit of the same things. He wasn't as great in college as a cover linebacker as JOK was. But he is super instinctive and super quick to the ball. And if you look at his highlights, he blows plays up before they even begin. He knows where the players are going. And we need that. You need linebackers in this day and age that know what's gonna happen. Players that study what's going on, Eduardo. You need players like that. To me, Edgerrin Cooper is that type of guy. He is instinctive. He's just special, man. If you have a chance to look at some Edgerrin Cooper tape, he's really, really good. My is Trevin Wallace. The linebacker class, with the exception of Cooper and a couple other guys, is not necessarily very deep. So if you don't get Cooper, you may want to get Peyton Wilson, but Peyton Wilson has a really checkered injury history. I would be disappointed if they got him in the 2nd round with the pick in the 50s. Trevin Wallace is a guy that's projected to go in like the 4th or 5th round. Trevin Wallace is an athletic freak. Okay. If you watch tape on him, he will also jump out at you. But he doesn't jump out quite as much as Edgerrin Cooper does to me. But Trevin Wallace, being the athletic freak that he is, the Browns especially, they don't have too many holes to fill. So if you can take an athletic freak, and Trevin Wallace was a pretty good linebacker for Kentucky. If you take him, you can mold him. He doesn't have to play right away. He may be able to play right away. I don't know, but you can mold him into a linebacker that can produce in the future, and he has the capability of producing very well. So I do like Trevin Wallace. I just don't like him early. At 5th round, fantastic. Go get Trevin Wallace if you don't get Edgerrin Cooper. Maris Liuafu from Notre Dame. This is my settle guy. He is a really impressive looking individual, and he plays like he's got his like there's fire under his ass. He really plays the game 100% all the time. Sometimes that's a negative on him, but he really plays the game hard, and you could watch it. He's your typical Samoan out there. I don't know if he's Samoan, but he kind of looks like he's got the long hair, Troy Polamalu-esque. But he plays 100% all the time, doesn't take plays off. I see him as a guy who could, for the Browns, could very well be a replacement for a guy they lost in Taki. I'm not even just putting it out there because they're roughly in the same ethnicity. But they do play the game very hard, and I think Liafu actually plays the game even harder than Taki does. So I think that with his physical presence, I think that he could be a bonus to any type of defense. He's projected to go in the 6th and 7th round, so it's not going to cost you much to get him. So if they had to settle for their only linebacker being Liuafu, I would be relatively excited about it. Defensive tackle. Okay. This is a pretty decent defensive tackle class. Okay. There's a lot of them. There's going to be a couple first rounders out there. One of my loves is kind of a Hail Mary throw. So if this guy's there, I think it's going to be really hard to pass up. But it's Jerzon Johnny Newton. Okay. Jerzon Newton was one of the most impactful defensive tackles in the NCAA last year. He is equally as good in stopping the run as he is rushing the passer. This guy, to me, has he's got top tier defensive tackle capabilities. He's Aaron Donald-esque, in my opinion. Doesn't have quite the extreme athleticism as Aaron Donald does, but I think he has the possibility of becoming that type of player in the interior. If you can get him in the 2nd round, there's a reason why he's a love here, because you can get him in the 2nd round. I'm not going to put him as a love if you can't get him with the middle of the 2nd round pick, but he's probably going to go sooner than that. My like here is a home guy, Michael Hall. Very athletic. Not necessarily physically imposing. He's like 280 pounds. He's like somewhere around 280, 290 pound guy. Really athletic in the middle, though. Does not have necessarily the great production, but I'm going to go with the homegrown guy here because I really want the Browns to pick Ohio State players because, you know, it's good. It's good to have that camaraderie in the fan base where it goes from OSU to Cleveland. I like when that happens, and I think that Michael Hall would fit in pretty good here. Doesn't have to play immediately. We got guys at D tackle. He can start off as a role guy and eventually develop into a starting defensive tackle, hopefully. So I like Michael Hall. My settle guy, and not really a settle guy, actually. He's kind of a like to begin with too, but I had to get 3, is Dwayne Carter from Duke. If you look at the tape, this guy is an excellent pass rushing defensive tackle. Excellent. And I think that's something we could use in Cleveland. Something any team can use is a pass rushing defensive tackle. This guy's, if you look at him and you look at a Senior Bowl tape, this guy has explosive first step, probably among the best in that class. We're talking Jerzon Newton-esque first step. So if you can get Dwayne Carter in the 3rd, 4th round, I think you got yourself a pretty good pick at defensive tackle if that's what you need. All right, defensive end, an edge. Okay. This is kind of a very top heavy. This is a very top heavy class right here. You got guys like Jared Verse who are really impressive and are going to be high first round picks. You don't really have like a huge middle tier. One player that I think could be available in the early to mid second round is this man right here, Darius Robinson. And for 49ers fans, I'd really keep an eye on this name because I think this is a guy that you could really use. I hope the Browns get him, but if the Browns don't get him, it might be because the 49ers took him. You guys just lost Eric Armstead, and Eric Armstead was, I don't know if you guys understand how big of a loss that's going to be. I think Eric Armstead held down the middle of that line for many years, and he's gone now, and you guys really don't have a replacement for him. Eric Armstead was kind of like a DN defensive tackle hybrid. He was a really tall, but well-built hybrid defensive lineman that was also really good. Darius Robinson also fills that role. He's 6'5", weighs about 310 pounds, and he's not 310 pounds, like he's not sloppy 310. He is, if you look at this guy looks like an absolute Adonis. Okay, this guy is built like Hercules. Okay, he's not the fastest guy, but he's also pretty big. Okay, he's pretty big. He's like I said, he's anywhere from 290 to over 300, and he's at 6'5", 6'6". So he's a really well-built, talented guy who could probably anchor your line for years. So I really love Darius Robinson. Honestly, I have none. After Darius Robinson, I think there are a bunch of guys who are okay. They got something about them, but they also lack some. Like Chop Robinson is a guy who people are high on, so he can go first rounder. I just don't see it. I don't see it with Chop Robinson. He's fast, but I don't need you to go run 40 yards. I need you to really have like a great speed rush, which he does, but he's also 245 pounds. Like he's very small. I don't like an end unless they're at least, if you're going to be a rush end, you still got to be at least 260, 265. Maybe he has the chance to put weight on him, but I don't know. But I don't have really any likes. I do have a settle though. He's probably my like, but he's a settle because he's going to be a late round pick, maybe not even drafted. But Mo Kamara from Colorado State. Look at the tape of this guy. This guy's got it. This guy can really turn the edge on a team. This guy can fly around that offensive tackle and sack the quarterback. He had 14 sacks. Granted, it's at Colorado State, small school. It is. It's a small school. But Mo Kamara, mark my words, this guy will be an impact player in the NFL at some point in time in his career. He's just really, really good and talented. He's a little on the small side too, but I think for what you get with Mo Kamara, he could be undrafted, could be a 7th round pick. It's probably like the same thing that you're going to get from a guy like Chop Robinson if you give him the opportunity. A lot of times these late round guys don't get the opportunity. They're forced to be special teamers. The first round picks, second round picks, they get many opportunities. We know this from Anthony Schwartz. But Mo Kamara can be an excellent, if he's not a full-time defensive end, he may not be able to put on the weight to be a full-time defensive end. He could definitely be a third down defensive end with his main priority is getting to the quarterback. He can be like a Justin Houston type guy. There's a need for that in the NFL. So, yeah, Mo Kamara, my settle guy, but if you get him in the 7th round, I'm actually pretty psyched. Okay. Running backs. Running backs are kind of a thing. Everyone has, if you look at all these mock drafts, everyone has the Browns taking a running back super early. I don't buy it. I'd be disappointed if it happened. Because I think there are a select few guys every year, maybe only one every draft, that has that it factor, that they could be a dynamic runner. It might not even be one in today's day and age. But then there are a whole bunch of guys who could tote the rock for you. They can do it. It's within them to do it. Because being a running back is not a very hard job. You get the ball and you run to the place you're either A, supposed to, or B, that has the least amount of defenders. It's a very simple concept. Most people that do that in college football have that capability. They probably run anywhere from a 4.4 to a 4.7. And they're probably anywhere roughly about 190 pounds to 210 pounds. Any one of those guys can run the ball through a hole if you give it to them. You just got to make the hole. But there are very few special guys. And I don't think there are any special guys this year. The closest guy that I could think is that could be like a really good pro running back is Trey Benson. But I wouldn't like to get him at that point in time. I wouldn't want the Browns to spend their first round pick on him, which is why I'm not going to say Trey Benson. My love is going to be Marshawn Lloyd. You can either have ground and pound or you can have shake and bake, or shake or bake. And Marshawn Lloyd has shake. He is really shifty with his feet. He's also a pretty big guy. He's a little on the older side, which kind of hurts him in a lot of people's eyes, which could benefit a team like the Browns. He might be there in the third round. He'll probably be there in the third round. So if you can get Marshawn Lloyd, I think he's a guy that can definitely tote the rock for you. 210 pounds. He's quick. He's fast. He can do a little bit in the passing game. Marshawn Lloyd's a good running back. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't even do it in the third round. But if they do pick a running back, I hope it's him. My like is a man by the name of Ray Davis from Kentucky. Ray Davis, watch tape on him. All right. I'm going to say that a lot with guys that I really like. Watch tape on him. He's got something that you can't measure. He's got vision. He knows where to run with the ball. You can tell just by watching the tape on him. He can see something, and then he'll go to either where the most opportunistic place for him to run to is. He's got the best vision of any running back in the class. He's also got the ability to. He's got your standard ability of a running back, but he's got the one thing that you can't judge off of a test, and that's vision. Ray Davis, going to be a pretty good running back for somebody. I don't know if it's going to be a backup but he's definitely going to make an impact at some point in time in his career. I can't tell you if he's going to be a starter for somebody, but Ray Davis can run the football for you. And then I'm going to go with my settle. Kendall Milton. And Kendall Milton could be a whole bunch of other running backs in the NCAA. And the reason I say Kendall Milton is because watch tape on Kendall Milton. There's nothing wrong with Kendall Milton. If you watch tape on Kendall Milton, you're going to come away with the fact that, yeah, this guy could probably run the football for my football team. Why is he being projected so late? There's a lot of people that aren't even putting him as being drafted. Kendall Milton can run the football in the NFL. He can. And there are a whole bunch of other guys that could run the football in the NFL. Guys that play for big teams. I don't know him, but probably somebody from Purdue can run the football. Probably somebody from Illinois can run the football. All right. Kendall Milton is just the example because from Georgia, you would think that somebody would be higher on him than they are. There's no real reason to dislike him. He's a good running back. He checks all your boxes for a running back, but for some reason he's being undrafted, which lends me to my original point. You either have good guys who can run the foot, who are special, great guys who are special, or you have a bunch of other guys who could run the football. Kendall Milton's as good as any of them. So if you want to not draft a running back and get Kendall Milton as an undrafted free agent, you probably did pretty darn good. Offensive tackle. So now we're getting into the unsexy territory, but what a lot of people want their teams to draft. We're going to talk about the offensive tackles and the offensive guards. My love, this by the way, this is a stacked offensive line class in both tackle, center, and guard. We're not going to talk about center because honestly, the Browns don't need to. I think there's a couple really good centers in this draft too. I think the 49ers could really do well getting them a center or an offensive tackle. So I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. My first offensive tackle that I think will be there, and mind you, it's kind of rare for a really good offensive tackle prospect, for a left tackle prospect, mind you, to be available in the mid-second round. That's how good this class is. My love is Kingsley Suamataia, 6'4", 320 pounds, excellent athleticism from BYU. This guy normally would be top 15 pick in any other draft class, but he's a little bit of a project. Okay. But he's got every physical tool that you can possibly think of. This guy could be your left tackle for the next 15 years. He could be. And you get him as a second round pick. That's fantastic. A team like the Browns doesn't need a guy like this to start right away. They got Jed Wills. Jed Wills is somebody that we're unsure about, but he can definitely Jed Wills can hold it down. Like he's not terrible. If you want to draft Kingsley and have him be his backup for a year and then maybe move on from Jed Wills, because you're going to have to pay Jed Wills after this year. Maybe a lot of money. Maybe you don't want to pay him that much money. So Kingsley can come in year 2 and really hold it down for the next 15. I really like Kingsley Suamataia. If the Browns draft him, I'll be happy with that pick. Okay, we're going to go to like, and I'm going to be honest. I really didn't look at this guy too heavily. I am trusting my judgment. I watched a little bit of tape on him, and he's fine. It's really hard to judge offensive linemen. Unless they're pancaking people all the time, it's really hard to judge offensive linemen. But I'm going to go with Roger Rosengarten as my like, and I'm going to go with him because there's one of the people I follow on YouTube, Quincy Carrier. He's one of the guys I trust, and he really, really is pushing for this guy. He's been pushing for him from the start. He was able to go to the Senior Bowl and evaluate some talent there, and he came away with Roger Rosengarten being one of the best guys there. Said he beasted up all the top defensive ends at the Senior Bowl. He stood toe-to-toe with them, played hard every play. So Roger Rosengarten is a guy that I think, and honestly, within the last week or two, I've been seeing his name pop up other places. I've been seeing him going as high as the second round. Would I like him in the second round? No. I wouldn't like him in the second round. But if you get in the third round and he's there, I'll take it. You get him in the third round, I'll take it. You get him in the if you're somehow he's available in the fourth round, we can move up and get him. Fantastic. If he's there in the fifth round, you can get him. Sure, why not? So I do like Roger Rosengarten in that regard because I trust Quincy Carrier. Settle. Javon Foster. And the reason I have Javon here is there's probably other players in between Roger Rosengarten and him in on people's boards, but Javon Foster played left tackle pretty much primarily for Missouri, and he's been doing it for a while. He's been a captain at Missouri. He's he's had a level of success there. I don't think he's not very highly touted, but he does have the credentials to do it. He's got a good build. There's no real reason why Javon Foster couldn't be a pretty decent left tackle in the NFL. He's projected probably 5th, 6th round. If you can get your starting left tackle in the 5th, 6th round, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good deal. NFL teams would kill for that. So Javon Foster is a guy that I think has a high floor. Not necessarily, I don't think necessarily a high ceiling, but if you can get a high floor guy that could be your tackle, he can even pull like swing tackle because he did have a little bit of time at right tackle, not much. He primarily played left tackle, but he could be your swing tackle and take over for the guys that we had last year. So Javon Foster is the guy that I'm looking at. If they don't go tackle early, maybe they'll go tackle later. And I think many teams could come up with a good pick in that regard. Offensive guard. Okay. Offensive guard, like offensive tackle, very deep. Okay. This is a pick that I could see really happening for the Cleveland Browns. I think one of the Browns' main goals is probably going to be, a lot of people are saying running back and receiver. That's fine, but I think it's offensive tackle, offensive guard, and tight end. I don't know if they're looking at tight end, but we got nobody in the tight end room. And honestly, we're gonna have to pay some offensive tackles, and eventually you got to start cutting the fat somewhere. So maybe Wyatt Teller might have to go. Maybe Joel Bitonio retires. You don't know what's going to happen. We don't really have a ton of depth at offensive guard. I would love if they drafted Christian Haynes. Christian Haynes is a pro-ready offensive guard. Christian Haynes has the physical capabilities of being an offensive guard. Christian Haynes is equally as good in the run and pass. He is a complete offensive guard. Normally would probably go in the first round of the draft. Maybe he does go in the first round of the draft. But he is in a lot of drafts and a lot of mock drafts. He's being around that 50 to 6, that 45 to 60 range. If the Browns drafted Christian Haynes, I'd be really happy with it. Might not necessarily be a big contributor this year, but drafts aren't only for this year. Drafts are for the future as well. If they don't go Christian Haynes, they might go Cooper Beebe. Cooper Beebe is a giant of a man. Cooper Beebe is about 330 pounds. Cooper Beebe is a mauler. Cooper Beebe comes from Kansas State. It's a pretty decent school for football. I trust that he has had many opportunities to face a lot of good talent, and he had a lot of, you can't say production, but he held his own. He was he's very high in esteem in terms of offensive guards. A lot of drafts have him going in the second or third round. So Cooper Beebe is definitely a guy they could take there. My settle guy would be Mason McCormick. Mason McCormick comes from a small school, but South Dakota State isn't necessarily that bad of a school. That level of FCS competition is probably comparable to the MAC. Maybe not quite as good, but you definitely can get good players. The 49ers picked a third overall pick from that school. Christian Watkins comes from that school. So you can get good players from South Dakota State. Mason McCormick is a really nasty guard. He's a really good run blocking guard. Can he develop into more than that? Why not? If you got good people teaching him, he might develop into that. There's a lot of guards around his level of, I feel like, level of effectiveness that are going to come out of this draft. And this is a deep guard draft too. So, but I do believe that Mason McCormick can eventually develop into a pretty good offensive guard. Tight end. This is one where I think people are really kind of not talking about. I believe, especially in Brown circles. I think tight end's a huge need for the Browns. I think tight end's a very big need for the Browns. They got David Njoku, and that's it. They got no one else. Jordan Akins really didn't do that much last year. Harrison Bryant's on. I don't think he was any damn good to begin with. The good thing about David Njoku is he is pretty sturdy, so he hasn't really been hurt all that much in his career. Even a fire to the face didn't stop him. He's I don't know if you know this. He's kind of like, honestly, he's probably my favorite Brown. I've turned to love David Njoku over the last couple of years, but I think he needs a running mate. And I've never understood why teams don't use a 2 tight end set more than they do. I mean, we use it a lot, but one's primarily a blocker. I don't understand why you can't use tight ends like the Patriots use Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski more, where one tight end is the move and the other tight end just plays their normal tight end position. I think that's a good possibility, and I think the Browns could really do well in drafting a guy by the name of Jatavian Sanders from Texas. This guy's, I think he's really being slept on. Second to third round, I think he's a first round talent. He didn't test well, and there's always that guy that doesn't test well. There's always that guy that, for some reason, his tape jumps out at you, but for some reason, he doesn't come across in the combine as being really athletic. But he is. He is athletic. If you watch tape on him, he outruns people. He runs over people. He makes really impressive catches. Like, this guy is a primetime player. He's not necessarily a great blocker, but then again, neither was David Njoku. David Njoku came into the league not knowing how to block. Now he's one of the best blocking tight ends in all of football. Like, he's really good. Teach him. Teach Jatavian Sanders how to block. He can do it. Trust me. I'm sure he can do it. If you had a tight end duo of Jatavian Sanders and David Njoku, I think that would be a pretty impressive that would be a pretty impressive weapon. That would be two impressive weapons to use in your offense. If you can't get Jatavian Sanders, or you feel like you need to go somewhere else, and you want to look a little later, although I've been seeing him creep up, so he might go in that mid-second round too. But if you can get him at like the third or fourth pick of your draft, Ben Sinnott from Kansas State, another Kansas State player. Ben Sinnott plays the game like he's got a rocket up his ass. Like, he really plays the game hard. He runs over people like Gronkowski. He's got an impressive physical stature. He's not necessarily the fastest guy, but he's also not the slowest guy. He catches everything. And, there's not much I don't like about Ben Sinnott. If the Browns got him at some point in time in this draft, I would be super excited about Ben Sinnott. With Ben Sinnott, you're looking at a guy who could be the best tight end. You're looking at a guy who could be, honestly, like a Kelsey type guy. Like, I think he's got that type of capability. But he's also, unlike Kelsey, he's also a fantastic blocker. Like, Ben Sinnott's really good, really underrated. Like I've said, this tight end class, a lot of people are saying that it's not good. I think that it is good. So I'm going against the grain here. But Ben Sinnott, really be stoked if the Browns got him. Brevin Spanford is my settle. This guy is a little bit of an enigma. I don't necessarily know how great he's going to be, but he's projected to go in like the 5th to 7th round, possibly undrafted. What you're looking at with Brevin Spanford is 6'7", about 265, 270 pounds. Runs about a 4.6. If you watch tape, he don't mind trucking some defenders over. He's a little older, so he's not a young guy. I believe if he was about 2 years younger, you'd be talking about a second or third round pick on this guy. But I can't remember exactly how old. I just know he's a little older than a lot of the prospects in this draft. And this draft has a lot of old prospects because it's the last COVID year. So, but Brevin Spanford, I mean, if you think about it, was anyone talking about Rob Gronkowski before he came out and started dominating for the Patriots? No one was talking about that. I think Brevin Spanford, I'm not saying he's going to be, but why couldn't he be? Like, he's got all of that capability. He's super tall. He's really well built and heavy, and he runs fairly fast. And he's pretty good at catching the ball, although he didn't catch the ball a lot for Minnesota. And I think that's probably another reason why he's not as highly thought of as he should be. But Brevin Spanford is a guy that, if the Browns got him with their 7th round pick or happened to pick him up in the undrafted free agency, I would be super happy about that. And that's pretty much it for my loves, likes, and settles portion of this. I'm going to keep this kind of short, but I did want to touch on this topic a little bit. Will the 49ers trade Brandon Aiyuk? Obviously, this is a 49er centric podcast, but I don't have my 49er uh, my 49er co-host here, so I've been talking a little bit more in terms of the Browns because I'm a Browns fan. But we got to talk about Brandon Aiyuk because I do watch a lot of 49ers content, and this is basically the main topic for like the last like week or so. Will the 49ers trade Brandon Aiyuk? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Why will they not trade Brandon Aiyuk? Because teams just don't trade away their good players, especially their fan favorite players. And 49ers fans love Aiyuk. They freaking love him. I don't necessarily love him as much as 49ers fans. I think he's slightly overrated. Do I think he's good? I think he's good. I think he's a good receiver. I always said Brandon Aiyuk would be an excellent, almost perfect number 2. But I don't think he's a number 1. But he's forced to be a number 1 because the 49ers' other receiver is such an odd usage of receiver. Deebo Samuel is not utilized as a receiver as much as he is like a running back or a screen guy, or he's essentially the best gadget player ever to play in the NFL. So Brandon Aiyuk is essentially your only real passing threat of a receiver, and their other receiver, Juwan Jennings, is really just I need a tough catch, I'll go to him type guy. The big guy, but he's also really kind of slow. He's almost like the true tight end out there. And George Kittle, unfortunately, has had to block more because of poor offensive line play. So really, your only guy is Brandon Aiyuk. And that's why he gets the majority of the stats. It's more of a system than it is anything. Now, a lot of people will say, well, if you look, it's his catch, it's his yards per catch. Yeah, but that's because they scheme him open to find weaknesses in the defense, and he's able to get a lot of yak, which he's not the great. I don't think he's the greatest yak guy, but he's pretty good, and he gets a lot of yak, and that's where he gets the majority of his yards. His yards aren't because he's making fantastic catches all the times. So I don't necessarily like Brandon Aiyuk as much as a lot of people do, but teams usually don't get rid of their really good players. Like the Chiefs getting rid of Tyreek or allowing Tyreek Hill to, or did they trade for Tyreek Hill or allowed him to go in free agency? One of the either way, that usually doesn't happen. The thing is, I think they probably should. I think they probably should trade Brandon Aiyuk. Why? Because you're going to have to pay Brandon Aiyuk a ton of money. You're going to have to, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown got like something like $26 million a year. And you know Brandon Ayuk's going to want more money than that. And he's going to cost you about probably $28 million a year. And it's something that I don't think the 49ers really can afford. Maybe they can. Maybe they can do something with the money, but it's going to put a big dent on them. You could probably, I think Brandon Aiyuk, I think a lot of teams think of Brandon Aiyuk as better than I think that he is. So I think you can get I think you can get a pick anywhere from 15 to 20. I think in that range, you can get a first round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. At that point in time, you can get a guy like A.D. Mitchell. You can get Xavier Legette, who I love. I mean, you can easily get him. You can get maybe something else you need and get a receiver a little later that would be like fairly decent, like Troy Mitchell or something like that. I'm just saying, I think what you lose of not having Aiyuk there. Now, you also lose a little bit of blocking because he is a good blocking receiver. I will give him that. But you should be able to teach blocking to a receiver. I don't understand why a lot of receivers don't block. I don't understand why the coaches let them not block. They should be able to block. I think in Kyle Shanahan's system, you better block. So if you want to play and you want to maximize your dollars, you better block. So I think that whatever receiver they choose to replace Aiyuk with, if they do trade him, will block. I think they will block. But yeah, I think they should do it. I just don't think they will. We'll see. I doubt we're gonna come tomorrow. We're gonna see a trade, and Brandon Aiyuk is on the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's just my own personal interpretation. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I just wanted to touch on the draft a little bit. We went about as long as I wanted to. Hopefully you guys have a good day and enjoy the draft tomorrow. See you later.